Welcome to Legendary Upside Podcast. My name is Pat Carrain. You can follow all of my content at legendaryupside.com. With me today, Sackreligious. We're going to be talking through the Week 12 slate with 4 games, and the rest of the games are covered over at legendaryupside.com in the walkthrough and in Matt Irby's Quick Slants if you're looking for the primetime games. But Sack, how's it going?
It's going well. It is the last week to qualify for the Dog Bowl. So if you haven't gotten a ticket, it's a big week. I have not gotten a ticket despite having a 2% top 1% rate and like a 6% top 3% rate. But hopefully this is the week.
Hopefully it is the week. Yeah. So we're going to be diving into these games, the 4 games that we're going to be doing: Cardinals, Seahawks, Patriots, Dolphins, Lions, Colts, 49ers, Packers. Sack is doing a lot more of the weekly drafts over on Underdog than I am. I'm doing mostly DraftKings DFS as far as my weekly contest stuff goes. Obviously, we're both in a bunch of redraft. But yeah, that's kind of the lens through which we're thinking through these matchups. And yeah, Cardinals Seahawks, I think we can kick off with. I ended up going with Kenneth Walker as the cover boy this week. I think I've had a wide receiver as the cover boy in every week this season, running contrarian to the actual season that we're having, which has not been so wide receiver focused. But this week I broke form and went with Kenneth Walker, who I think has a really good matchup here as part of a game environment that I like, and an offense that I think is really going to be moving the ball efficiently. But looking through DFS, I ended up liking the Seahawks just generally. DK Metcalf, JSN, Geno Smith all look really good. There's a lot of interesting stuff on the Cardinals side. So this one I think is just probably my favorite game environment of the week, particularly when attacked from Seattle. The Seattle offensive side primarily. But before I dive into some of the matchup-based specifics, what are your thoughts generally on this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is one where off the jump, I was pretty excited about it. And then when I read what you had written up in the walkthrough, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm into this. So I had been clicking Kenneth Walker reasonably aggressively in the Dog Bowl. And then I read the walkthrough and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm loading up. But whenever I find a spot like that where I'm just like, I'm seeing everything through the rose colored glasses, I do really try to think through how the game fails and what that looks like. And for this game, I can see a pretty realistic path to it failing. That doesn't mean like stay away from it. It's not like a lock this game into every one of your lineups type of spot, because these are both teams where it wouldn't surprise me a ton to see the Seahawks be run heavy like they've been lately. They've been a lot more run heavy than they've been pass heavy. And the Cardinals have been pretty happy to be run heavy as well. Earlier in the season, it was just all through James Conner, but lately his snap share has been trending a little bit down. So I think the worst outcomes for this game are where the Cardinals split the backfield up just enough to where James Conner gives you like a nice average game, but nothing exciting enough to really do anything in a big tournament. And then, the Seahawks also reciprocate and they're run heavy as well. And you get that same, kind of ho-hum efficiency from Kenneth Walker that we've seen lately. But really this is such a good example spot of like what's happened lately is not the only thing that can happen. And if we just rewind like 5 or 6 weeks and think through like how we were seeing Kenneth Walker, back then, I mean, we were ranking him as the running back 1 on the week and it wasn't like, oh, it was just 1 week that we had him as the running back 1. There were multiple weeks where we had him as the top overall running back on the week because of his extremely strong passing role in the passing game. And then also he was having incredible efficiency. And then now we've just recently seen, hey, yeah, Kenneth Walker's rushing efficiency, like a lot of the times it's on the back of some really big plays, or like he runs hot on touchdowns, which can happen to any running back. And so I want to remember the upside that we just saw earlier this season, but I also want to think through the context of what makes this game not work.
Yeah, part of everything you're saying about like the game being a little more fragile than just like one of these spots where it's like, man, this game we can really count on these teams to push each other, and I don't see how this game can possibly fail. It isn't one of those spots. I agree. It's an exciting spot, but one that could fail. That's partly what pushes me to Kenneth Walker here, is because he is somewhat game script insulated with a 13% target share, which is running back 7. He's still been used in the passing game, not as much as recently. But the Seahawks are passing a bit less than they were. So I like Walker because I think if the game really goes off, he's going to be involved. If the game is a little bit less exciting, I think in part it might be because the Seahawks are leaning on Walker, and he'll have plenty. I think he's pretty safe, but he also gives you a bunch of upside, which is always nice. The Cardinals are 26th in the EPA per rush, 26th in rushing success rate against, so they are not a good run defense. And yeah, we've seen Walker really fall off in rushing efficiency recently. He had 44 rush yards over expected through week 7, and then he has totaled minus 42 over the last 3 weeks. So for the season now, he's at basically 0 with rounding rush yards over expected per game. So obviously you don't love that his efficiency has really fallen off, but we know that he has flashed that high upside, that breakaway ability. He's still running back 16 in breakaway yards per game. He's still running back 6 in elusive rating. He actually still has a pretty good success rate, running back 18 with a 41% success rate. So he's been pretty solid there. Again, it's not like a slam dunk for Walker, but the offense I think will be moving the ball pretty effectively. One thing I like about this from the Seahawks side is that the Cardinals pass rush is not good. They're 30th in pressure rate, 27th in time to pressure. The Seahawks have really struggled to protect Geno this year. He's been much better from a clean pocket than under pressure, and he's dealt with pressure a lot. The Seahawks are 29th in pressure rate, so not preventing pressure well at all. So if we have the passing offense moving the ball efficiently, which I think we can probably count on, and then you're in a good rushing matchup, and you catch the ball, and you're explosive, really nice combo of floor and ceiling for Walker. But it's also why I do like DK Metcalf and JSN here. The part that concerns me the most as far as this game failing is on the Cardinals side. They have pass rates of 40% and 46% over the last 2 weeks with a minus 13% PROE against the Bears. They're only minus 1% last week, but you're passing only 46% of the time. Like, you don't really need to be in the negative. It's still kind of a red flag for hoping that the game shoots out. The Seahawks have a poor run defense, 25th in rushing success rate against, 21st in EPA per rush. So I do think we get plenty of James Conner here. And then you have this really kind of like up and down passing offense on the other side. Kyler Murray's efficiency has really been quite volatile, and he plays this volatile style. He kind of relies on buying time, scrambling around, making plays, attacking usually like the deep sidelines. This is not like one of these high percentage throw offenses, as much as we're used to seeing in the modern NFL, right? So it's a little bit spiky. And so what if we get an inefficient Cardinals passing offense and the run heavy, and then they get down, but they're still not? Because the other thing with the Cardinals is that they have sometimes just continued to run the ball even when they're way down. They lost to the Commanders back in week 4. They had a 47% pass rate with a 69% expected pass rate. So the Cardinals just sometimes don't cooperate. You need this game to be competitive, and the Cardinals to be putting up points. And in that case, I think it could be really fun. But yeah, I think the Cardinals side of this is what makes me a little more nervous than the Seahawks side.
Yeah, and the Seahawks in underdog format, as far as the pass catching options, I mean, Lockett is wholly undrafted, and I don't really think he's draftable. But Metcalf and JSN basically go back to back. Metcalf always goes first. I don't think I've seen someone take JSN first in the drafts that I've done. But I am pretty interested in JSN this week when I am playing this game to go off, because you mentioned in the walkthrough you've got a nice little section here on when DK Metcalf was out of the lineup. JSN averaged 9.5 targets, for 6.5 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown. That's pretty good. So we've seen
it's over 2 games. It's a small sample, but yeah, it was pretty good.
Well, but hang on. When he came back, then you still get JSN with 10 targets, 110 yards, or 10 receptions, 110 yards on 11 targets. So it wasn't like we immediately saw it fall off.
Right.
One thing I've seen a lot of people talk about is, oh, well, he went back to playing in the slot last week. And it's like, yeah, but if you look at the weeks that Metcalf was out, he still had an extremely high slot rate. It basically didn't change.
He didn't go back to the slot.
No, yeah, he's been in the slot. So the thing that's encouraging to me is that he's really checking. He's starting to check all the boxes to me of this like power slot that we see guys like Cooper Kupp and CeeDee Lamb operate, where they're not a slot receiver in the way you think of slot receiver as, oh, it's just this little dink and dunk stuff. It's no, this is a guy that they will operate at all depths out of the slot. Now, in this last game, the most recent one, he did have a lower ADOT. He just had an 8.5 ADOT after he was all the way up to over 20 ADOT in week 9. I certainly think the ADOT of over 20 is a little bit of an aberration. And
I still love seeing that, though. That was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that lets us know, like, hey, this guy is able to operate at all depths and win at all depths. And you do like that now the Seahawks are very aware of that, right? Like, this guy has put on tape that he can do that at the NFL level.
That's a big bull signal to me as well. I mean, we saw that with Diggs. Ben Gretsch has written about this as well with, like, Diggs and DJ Moore, that kind of stuff. Like, when you see these guys, they're winning at the various depths. It's like, if there's nothing you can't do, that is such a powerful element, to have a wide receiver. That's one. It's like, if you can't be stopped doing various things, then it's difficult to stop you, which is how you consistently draw targets.
Yeah, that's how you ultimately elevate to being those elite, what we think of when we think of Cooper Kupp having his dominant seasons, and what you think of when you think of CeeDee Lamb having these dominant seasons, because the guy is just a tool in your offense that you can use for whatever you need, right? And so that's the thing that gets me pretty excited about JSN is all we've seen is like this upward trend over these last few weeks, and I do kind of want to bet on that continuing. So I'm not saying I'm
just on the slot stuff real quick. JSN had 65% slot rate in week 7 with 91% route participation, which matched Metcalf and is good. Like, if you're in around 90%, that's really strong for a wide receiver. Then Metcalf goes out. JSN stays at 91% route participation and actually runs 82%, up from 65% the previous week, of his routes from the slot. Then the next game, Metcalf is out again. JSN jumps up to 98% route participation with a 92% slot rate. So he's running even more from the slot. This is his blow-up game. That's where he had 12 targets, 7 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then the following week, which was last week, he was 92% route participation, 83% of his snaps from the slot, 11 targets, 10 receptions, 110 yards. It's not like, if anything, you'd say his slot usage is actually a little down with Metcalf in. It's not, that's not a concern. And he's running, to your point about kind of the different type of slot role. When you see the guys, to me, it's route participation. Like, do we really care where they line up? We only tend to care about slot receivers because, like Demario Douglas, it's a bummer he's a slot receiver because he comes off when they're in 12 and they're starting to run a lot of 12. So it's directly impacting his route participation. Like, he was in the high 70s. Now he's in the mid 60s. That's not happening to JSN. And so I really don't care where he's lining up. I care more about ADOT because, that's deeper targets are going to be, generally a little bit more valuable. So are you mixing in some deep targets? That I would definitely like to know. If you run most of your routes from, not on the very outside of the formation, I don't really care.
Yeah, well put. And JSN is seeing some deep stuff. I mean, he has a 62nd percentile splash zone target rate, which is higher than DK Metcalf. So if there is a guy that's going to be getting those splash zone targets in this offense, it's most likely going to go through JSN. And I haven't looked into this, so this could not be accurate.
They're all pretty close. Those guys are all pretty close as far as their 62nd percentile for JSN, 49th for Metcalf, 51st for Lockett. There's not like
I
a
would,
clear guy there.
yeah, I would assume though that he's probably seen an uptick in these last few weeks where he's been operating a little deeper. Because this is, for his season long ADOT, these last few weeks, I mean, you get the one with the 20,
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
ADOT that's definitely higher. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him be the guy that they are trying to get the ball to in the splash zone to be able to make stuff happen after the catch.
Yeah. And splash zones 10 plus yards downfield and over the middle. We care about that because we tend to see a lot of yak. I think Cooper Kupp's touchdown last week where he beats the one guy and then it's just to the end zone. That can happen a lot more easily in the deep middle of the field. That was 20 yards exactly downfield. The ball traveled 20 yards through the air in the middle of the field. So we like those targets. Those tend to be good yak targets. Yeah, no, I mean Metcalf though, I would just say, Metcalf's at 1.98 yards per route run. He's got a 14.1 ADOT. He draws targets pretty well, 22% targets per route run, 22% target share. He's good. It's Metcalf, So I think in a good matchup, in a spot where we think Geno is not going to get pressured much. He might be able to attack a little bit more downfield. So I definitely wouldn't underrate Metcalf here. And for weekly games, for DFS, sometimes I end up in these spots where I'm like, I don't want to just close my eyes and be like, it's going to be a Walker game. He's the cover boy, but it's like, it's not like such a slam dunk that it's going to be Walker here in my mind. It's like, it could be Walker. I think he's pretty safe and he's got upside, but Metcalf could have a huge game here. JSN could have a huge game. Geno could have a huge game. I want to be stacking the Seahawks this week. I want to also be playing Walker. I think you could stack Kyler in this game. We talked about how that side of it can fail, but how interested are you in the Cardinals pieces, particularly in the passing game?
Yeah, on underdog, Marvin Harrison just goes too expensive. Honestly, this week would be a fantastic case study for like people who don't really understand what the game is that they're playing. Not necessarily just because of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s price, but the frequency with which Marvin Harrison Jr. is paired with certain players. He's very anchored to the 2-3 turn. So I think one of the worst things you possibly can do is pair Marvin Harrison with Christian McCaffrey, because those are two uncorrelated pieces that are being drafted at an extreme clip together. I can pull this up here. They're one of the highest non-correlated, not in the same game or not teammates, players on the slate. They're being paired together a little over a third of the time in drafts.
Wow.
So, and it doesn't make any sense because I think that price is bad for Marv anyway. You're giving up, like, for example, would you rather have Terry McLaurin or Marvin Harrison Jr. straight up?
Terry McLaurin.
Malik Neighbors with the groin injury or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I think still Malik Neighbors.
Okay, yeah. And so you're passing on guys like that. You also could have JSN over Marvin Harrison Jr. You prefer JSN over Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, basically if you're drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. and you're doing it at the 2-3 turn, it's probably pretty bad. Just like it is. So I would not do that. As far as how interested I am in the other Cardinals pieces, I'm really not super interested in any of the tertiary receivers as like a scroll down type thing. I don't really want to play Michael Wilson. I mean, like maybe, just maybe you could make a case for it if you have Kyler and you're trying to get unique because the rest of your lineup was like, you had some of those really high owned combinations that have no correlation. So you're like playing into some chalk. But I think you only really want to do that if you're aware of what those high owned combinations are and you have a lot of confidence in that. If you don't have something in your process where you know what the high owned combinations are, you're probably just better off not dabbling with a scroll the F down to Michael Wilson. I'd normally be pretty interested in James Conner, and he's getting projected relatively well. but I'm pretty scared about the potential decrease in workload for him. And he really just seems like a guy where his ceiling is all coming through volume. And so I'm pretty concerned that that ceiling case seems a lot thinner to me with Trey Benson coming on, and Amari DiMercado still can get in there and mess stuff up by taking away stuff in the passing game. So it's just a lot murkier of a ceiling for Connor for me. So really the piece I'm most interested in for the Cardinals is Trey McBride. That's the one that I would be playing it through the most. I'm not opposed to clicking Marv. It's just that the room is never giving me Marv, right? They're just always taking him at what I think is a bad price. So the other way that I think is kind of interesting is doing Kyler as the quarterback and not playing any Cardinals pass catchers. I'm happy to stack Kyler and Trey McBride, but if you had Seahawks pieces and brought it back with Kyler, I don't really hate that either. We've talked about that on previous shows as kind of a way to play that where you've got a rushing quarterback, especially one where I don't love doing it if you've got good prices on the other options that you can correlate with that quarterback. Like if Marvin Harrison Jr. went in the 4th round, I'd be way less interested in doing naked Kyler, or not naked Kyler, but just Kyler with Seahawks pieces. And again, Trey McBride's relatively expensive too. If he was a bargain, I'm almost never doing that. But because of how expensive the weapons are, I can have some pretty good 2v2s against the teams.
Yeah.
Kyler with the Cardinals pass catchers. And so I am open to doing that. And you had mentioned that you're into stacking at the Seahawks. So I would assume you have no issue doing Kenneth Walker plus a receiver and then having Geno on that, right?
That'd be fine. Yeah.
And
because Walker can catch passes.
Yeah, and you do that even without Geno, right? Like if you wanted to do a different quarterback.
Yeah. I think so.
I agree. Here's an interesting one. This is going to be basically 0% owned. Even saying it here, people listening to this and going and doing it, it will still be almost 0% owned. The combination of DK Metcalf and JSN doesn't exist in any of the rooms that I've been in because they go
right next to each other
together in the middle of the 2nd round. Now, the thing is, at the end of the 1st round, let me hit you with some players here at the end of the 1st round, and I want to get your opinion on, and really the question is are any of these guys so good that you should not be taking JSN or Metcalf over them? So let me start reading some of these off to you. This is based on the ADP from my sample in the dog bowls. So David Montgomery, would you never take JSN and DK Metcalf over David Montgomery?
No, I would not. Never.
Okay. The one thing to keep in mind is running back does get pretty thin on this slate just because of the number of buys.
Yeah.
So
that's when I was writing up everybody. I'd be like, this guy's like a running back too. I'm like, I think he's a running back one because there's no one to play.
You kept qualifying stuff with there are 6 teams on bye this week.
Yeah, because I'm like, normally you have this, the profiles, this is a high end RB2 profile, and you're like, and I'm ranking it as I go, and I'm like, yeah, he's running back 9 for us.
Yeah,
it's a little different this week.
So for, I guess my caveat would be for the running backs here, just you gotta be comfortable playing some of the later ones that you can get. Kareem Hunt was one of my favorites, but that's been all blown up now.
Yeah.
I had over 20% Kareem Hunt before the Pacheco being ruled out news happened. I wish I had hammered it harder. I was diversifying off of it because I was like, God, Kareem's not even that good, but it is a great matchup, and I should have hammered it harder. But okay, back to these other guys that you would or would not take either Seahawks receiver over. Travis Kelce.
I would be willing to take either guy over Travis Kelce.
Jaden Daniels.
I guess I don't. I'm not in these streets, so I don't know the quarterback price.
I think you definitely should be comfortable taking them over Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
The late quarterbacks, yes, it's thinner at quarterback this week than it is in some other weeks, but I'm getting Drake May in the last round. I don't care. I can get Bo Nix in the 5th. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And of course, Geno is there in the last round. And if you're taking both these Seahawks,
you're double stacking.
Yeah. Brock Bowers.
That one's a little bit less fun, but sure. I mean, I think you could You could talk me into it.
Yeah. And then the other guys would be like Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb. Like my point is
I
none
just
of these.
prefer it. I prefer Metcalf straight up over CeeDee Lamb.
Right. So and CeeDee Lamb
I
does
prefer
go
Metcalf, I
later.
think, over Evans.
Yeah, yes. CeeDee
We
Lamb
don't know
does
how
go
much he's
later.
gonna.
Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, my point is it's a pretty good spot. You sacrifice very little in the way of projection. You're going to get a double stack that should be. I mean, we're seeing this Seahawks passing game turn relatively concentrated. If Kenneth Walker wasn't involved in the passing game, it'd be super concentrated. But
right.
you do have him involved too. So I'm pretty interested in the Seahawks double at the turn. I know that Geno is my 6th-round pick, though, then, because no one in their right mind is going to take Geno away from me when I have both the receivers. And so then I'm looking at, all right, rounds 3 and 4 are for where I get my running back, and round 5 is a punt tight end, and I'm cooking now. So I haven't done it myself, so I was just workshopping it here, but I might have to jump in a draft before we
Yeah,
release this pod so I can get that.
we're not streaming live, so you have a
Yeah.
chance to draft it. I would push back a little bit on the idea of James Conner not having a ceiling. I think he does. I also am a little bit concerned about the usage recently. 48% snap share in week 9, 54% in week 10. So, and then coming off a bye, um, you know, maybe we get more Benson this week. But Connor is running back 14 in rush yards over expected per game, running back 11 in success rate, running back 3 in elusive rating, running back 20 in breakaway yards per game. He's older back, not super explosive, but still getting a little bit of juice there. He's running back 8 in yards per route run at 1.61. He doesn't get targeted a ton, but we have seen him break some plays, on some dump off stuff or some screens. So, yeah, he's touchdown dependent because he doesn't have a huge role in the passing game, but he is efficient running the ball this season. It's not like purely you're hoping he falls in the end zone type stuff. And I also think with the Cardinals, if scenarios where this game is competitive, I still think they're going to run the ball a lot. Like these, it's like Lions Seahawks, the way they used to push each other with Pete Carroll, be like, you'd still get pretty low pass rates, but they're just like scoring. They're efficiently scoring the ball on each other with balanced or even run heavy, not run heavy maybe, but run first attacks. And the Seahawks, they're 21st in EP allowed per rush, 25th in rushing success rate against. So I think we could see Connor have a pretty strong game here if the game plays out the way we're hoping.
That's a good point. Yeah, I definitely the scary nature of Connor's usage lately was probably blinding me a little bit to his ceiling. So it's good. I
It's a
do.
floor ceiling thing.
Yeah, I think it's really important when you're trying to think through games like this to do it in that way, like we did for this game, where hey, here's how this could fail, here's how it goes well. Like this is just to kind of get a sense of the range of outcomes.
Let's move to the Patriots and the Dolphins. This one is looking like another fun game, probably my second favorite game environment, where I actually think we could get teams pushing each other and creating some fun scoring on the other side. You got to hand it to Drake May. He's down to turn the ball over. He will have probably an interception or a lost fumble in this game, and can help speed the game up, give the Dolphins a short field, because Drake May is also willing to take chances that actually pay off. Last week, he's coming off a career high 73rd percentile EPA per play and 95th percentile showing in success rate. His success rate now is actually pretty damn good this season. Not like amazing, but he's quarterback 16 in success rate. He's right between Kirk Cousins and Jordan Love. Sets him up as a bit of a positive regression candidate. And again, we're seeing big mistakes, lost fumbles. I mean, even if he gets strip sacked and his own guy falls on it, that would be positive regression, right? He keeps losing the fumbles, and then obviously he's had a couple lost ceiling interceptions over the last few weeks, which wasn't the most fun way to end the games. But the guy's willing to take some chances downfield. I linked in the walkthrough to some of Kevin Cole's work where he actually breaks out the expected points added in buckets. Where one of the buckets is pass expected points added that doesn't include interceptions, sacks, and fumbles. So, no scrambling here for May. This is just literally throws, but without mistakes. And he had 18.7 pass EPA last week, which was higher than what Stafford did. Stafford, in that great game, was at 16.2. May surpassed that. Now, May lost 8.7 points with interception and fumble stuff. So, and sacks. Stafford didn't lose any points. So, that matters. It's important. We fundamentally, what the total is what's going to count. But I think it points to some of May's upside and going against the Dolphins' pass defense that isn't really that great. They're 25th in PFF's coverage grades. They have a pretty decent showing in pressure rate. They're 11th there. They're second in time to pressure. Patriots still not protecting May at all. They run way too much on first down, minus 8% PROE against the Bears, minus 7% last week against the Rams. Don't have a ton of faith in Alex Van Pelt to not do the dumb thing, which would be to try to run on a good Dolphins run defense. Probably will do that. But it's not like the thing with the Patriots is that it's like they're not maximizing May, but they're also not like completely minimizing him either. They had a 79% pass rate 3 weeks ago against the Titans. They had a 77% pass rate against the Jaguars. They had a 64%, so pretty solid pass rate last week against the Rams. Occasionally they will go really run heavy, like they were 50% against the Bears, but remember they beat the crap out of the Bears, so that was a little bit of a different game. When it's competitive, they generally are willing to pass, even if they pass too infrequently on first down. So I think we get a decent game from May, maybe a little bit production out of Hunter Henry here. You could dart throw it in with the wide receivers. Ramondre Stevenson set up reasonably well. But more on the May, I think you're thinking May and Henry stacks and push these Dolphins. Let's push these Dolphins. Let's see what happens when the Dolphins open things up a little bit, which they did last week. For the first time all season, they actually opened things up in the passing game a little bit. They had a 6% pass rate over expected. They've been negative in almost every game this year. And didn't go nuts last week or anything, but that was a nice little sign, especially because they're going up against this Patriots defense that I wrote up last week is like one of the defenses to attack the splash zone with. They're second worst in defending the splash zone. They just had that Cooper Kupp play. They also didn't really double Puka and Kupp last week or shadow them. So they're doing some weird stuff in coverage. And they don't have a good pass rush. They're only 24th in pressure rate. So if the Dolphins feel like there's going to be times where we're protecting Tua really well and we're going to be able to attack this vulnerable defense down the deep middle of the field, they're probably going to pick their spots. Like I don't expect them to just like drop back constantly and attack that part of the field. There's going to be a lot of quick passing and stuff and a decent amount of running. But I think they do some of that in this game, which makes me pretty excited about Tyreek Hill here as the highest upside piece in this entire game.
Yeah, very, very excited about Tyreek Hill. I mean, the Cooper Kupp play is just like a great little snippet of like, now imagine this is Tyreek Hill. Like really, I can definitely see it going off in that way. Honestly, this game has so many things to like. The Dolphins having a good pass rush doesn't really dissuade me all that much. I mean, if anything, you might just get a little bit more scrambling from May. Now, the thing that you're most scared about is you really don't want the game to stay that close, I think, because if it's close, I think the Patriots, they're not going to fully turtle. They've been willing to pass some, but they will do the stupid thing of like, we're going to run on first down and put our quarterback in a bad situation.
I think you want it reasonably close. I think you want the Patriots trailing by somewhere between like 3 and 7, maybe 10. The whole game.
Yeah. 3 and 7, maybe even 10. But you want the Patriots comfortable, and they will throw from behind. That's the other thing that I do like. Now, the Dolphins are 32nd in double team rate. So if you're looking for, and before I start with the really gross plays, my favorite way to play Drake May is with Hunter Henry. I think that's a smash. Hunter Henry's going far too cheap for what his role has been lately. And I think against the Dolphins specifically, like it should be a pretty good situation here where they're going to be able to get to May pretty easily. They've got that good pass rush coupled with the Patriots' really poor offensive line. Like it looks like a spot where they're going to need to get the ball out quickly. You could also see that going through Demario Douglas. But again, his snap share is kind of fragile. If the Patriots are going run heavy like they have in the last couple weeks, Demario Douglas has only been on the field like in the 60% of time. Like so,
Austin Hooper's seeing a lot of time. It's not hurting Henry at all. He's in the 90s
no.
in route participation. It doesn't matter to him. But 2 tight end sets.
Yeah. So it definitely could be a good game for Hunter Henry, but I also think that you could do something like Kendrick Bourne or you could do Kayshon Boutte. I think Kendrick Bourne might be the best receiver on this team. He's obviously just coming back from the ACL, and so he's probably being worked in slowly. But he was good. The last time that we saw him, he was like a legitimately good receiver. He's older and coming off an ACL, but he also had a pretty decent game. So it's a disgusting.
It's not Jalen Polk. I'll tell you that. It's definitely not Polk.
We
Guy can't line up, false starting all the time, holding people, missing blocks,
dropping balls,
dropping everything.
Even though he allegedly has the best hands in the league per him. It's not Jalen Polk, but I think you could do a dart throw of Boutte. I think you could do a dart throw of Bourne. Those are both interesting to me. But really, I'm fine with naked May with just Dolphins as a bringback, and you're playing him to rush.
May with Dolphins as a bringback seems pretty good, especially because I think Achane set up really well here.
Yes.
So what we just talked about with Kyler Walker Metcalf, is May, Achane, Hill. Like that's like the same. They're the same picture. So I think you
were very right. I was muted. I'm gonna pull up the specific combination frequency for. I want to look at Drake May and Tyreek Hill because I see a lot of people do the Achane and May thing, but I don't know how many people do it with Tyreek Hill. Okay, so there's a couple people. 2 of them are drafters that I have flagged as sharp drafters, and one of them even has a Kendrick Bourne. Oh man. Oh boy, someone read the playbook. But yeah, so the Tyreek Hill, Drake
May. It's just your burner.
It's not my burner. It's someone in the Ship Chasing Discord, so we can give them their props privately. Yeah. I won't blow their team up on air here. But it's a spicy team. I like it. But yeah, now I want to do it the same thing and look at the Achane because I believe that I'm seeing the Achane stuff happen a little more frequently. But let me just pull this up here. Now, the thing I've been struggling with is Kenneth Walker and Tyreek Hill go back to back. Wow, actually, I've only seen Achane May once, so that is the less common combo. So,
wow, okay.
But
they're both really good.
Yeah. Kenneth Walker and Tyreek go back to back. Tyreek goes after Walker, I believe. Is that a spot where you're willing to mix it up between both of those guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Even given the pretty significant scarcity at running back this week, and like ideally you'd like to have 2 in underdog half PPR, the upside of Tyreek is too good that you want to be mixing him in there.
I'm not in there, and so I guess I could I might change my answer if I was drafting and being like, I really do not like what's happening when I take Hill. I could see that, but I think my inclination is that I want to be getting ceiling, right? If I'm going to make that kind of play, it better be for ceiling, and Hill really does have a high ceiling here. Again, what if the Dolphins are willing to open things up a little bit more here in terms of their pass rate after, they did a little bit of that last week because this defense is not scary in terms of getting hits on Tua. That's, to me, I think it's so much of what the Dolphins have been doing is trying to get the ball out super quickly and just protect Tua. But, maybe they feel like they can both protect Tua and attack downfield here a little bit more. So yeah, I think, and then, I know Hill hasn't been Hill, but one of the things that's kind of crazy about a guy who his efficiency is usually so insanely hot, is that he's actually a little bit of a positive regression candidate. If you look at his ADOT of 12.1, which is higher than last year. Last year he was at 11.3. So he's getting targeted deeper on average than last year. And he's got a 22% targets per hour, which is good. if you just assume that he's going to have a league average yards per target for that ADOT, he'd have a 2.06 yards per route run. He's at 1.76. It's a meaningful difference. So, a little bit of meat on the bone for what we have in Tyreek's role generally. And now let's take him into a matchup that specifically boosts what he does well. I think you have enough ceiling to do something like a little bit suboptimal in a draft setting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I need to be taking more Tyreek Hill. One of the aspects of this matchup I was looking into is I agree with you that a big motivation for the Dolphins this year is trying to hide their weak offensive line. Really, it's just the right side of their offensive line where they give up lots of pressure. Their right guard, Eichenberg, is pretty poor. And so that's where they've been struggling the most. And the Patriots do actually have a pretty good time to pressure. They're sixth in the league in time to pressure, and they have a blitz rate of fourth in the league. So, like, they're bringing people and they're getting there quickly. But
they're real bad. Their blitz EPA is horrible.
Yes, that's my point. If you're going to blitz that much, you're going to make yourself vulnerable to these big plays, right?
Yeah.
And so the other thing is, if you look at, so Tua has, league fastest time to throw, right? And I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, well, that's why Tyreek isn't getting, the ball. That's why Tyreek's been bad this year, because they're throwing so fast he can't get deep down the field. But like you pointed out, he's got a higher ADOT than he did last year. And if you look last year, Tua's time to throw was also right about this quick.
Yeah.
This
is also like time to throw and depth aren't necessarily as correlated as you would think. Like
especially when you have someone as fast as Tyreek.
Yes. Like a lot of the really good stuff is quick throws. Like a lot of because it's in rhythm. The guy drops back, boom, out, right? Like that. And if you the Tyreek, he can be pretty far downfield when his back foot hits, So it's not time to throw is not necessarily if the offense is moving efficiently, if they're accomplishing what they're looking to do on their routes, then needing to get the ball out reasonably quickly. It's just like, is he clean? Is when he comes back, is Tyreek breaking open and he's clean? Like that's the thing we want.
Yeah, my kind of general takeaway here though is what I've been hearing from people is this concern over some of these things, and I don't think they're actual concerns. And so I'm just hoping that people aren't as into this spot as we are, and I want to play a good amount of Tyreek. I really like this game on both sides.
I do too, and I think it's one of those games where you can see that both teams pushing each other in a way that kind of makes it better for both sides. The other thing I want to mention is that the double team rates for Puka and Kupp weren't particularly high last week by the Patriots. This was not especially for Kupp, but this was, the Patriots under Belichick, it was like make them play left-handed. And a bunch of the Patriots beats after the game were like, what happened to that? Like, why didn't we make them play left-handed? So, the idea that obviously the Patriots are going to try and take away Tyreek, are they going to shadow him with Gonzalez? They didn't shadow with Gonzalez last week. All that stuff is live to happen. They could be doubling, shadowing, beat us with anyone but Tyreek. I think that kind of makes Jonnu interesting, to be honest. I think it makes Achane pretty interesting. But it's another game where it's like, I don't know exactly how it's going to play out here, but I like a lot of pieces. Tyreek, Achane, and then May and Henry stacks. And I also think John is pretty interesting. He ran a bunch of routes last week, and when he's on the field, he's been targeted a lot. And he's been efficient. He's been really good this year. So you give me routes for Jonnu. And he actually leads all tight ends in splash zone target rate and leads the Dolphins in splash zone target rate. So if they attack that deep middle of the field, he'll be a big part of that too, I think, as long as he's out there. And I believe he had 92% route participation last week. He had 83% in week 9, 78% in week 7. He's bounced around, but we're starting to see him kind of trend in the right direction. Let's move to the Lions at Colts. David Montgomery, a pretty good play here, huh?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think we've talked about the Colts' penchant for not actually tackling, and I feel like David Montgomery is the type of running back that
That's a
would
good
just
call.
love. He would love to pinball off of you.
Running back 7 in elusive rating. He's still breaking tackles. 90
Yeah,
elusive rating. Yeah.
yeah. If you don't wrap David Montgomery up, he's gonna have a good time. So I'm pretty excited about him here. Unfortunately, he's pretty expensive. It's like you're not, the field knows that it's a good spot for David Montgomery. I'm just taking my David Montgomery medicine though and making sure that I'm clicking him.
Well, this might be. I meant to mention with Harrison that he looks like he's going to be a pretty sneaky DFS play. Davis Maddock highlighted him as a guy he really likes on our pod today. And Montgomery is not going to be, well, at least on DraftKings, Montgomery is not going to be very highly played. He's probably going to be like sub 5% owned
Okay.
in most tournaments. So, yeah, he's 6,700. Gibbs is only 7,300. Well, it's fairly expensive, but not that much more than Montgomery. And I also think a pretty strong play there too. But both these running backs, I'm considering making like a Lions running back a pretty key part of my builds this week in a very similar way to last week. Where I was like, they're going to run on the Jags. Like, there's no way they're going to have like a 60% pass rate against the Jags, and therefore they won't have an incredible day. And then it's like, no. They still will have an incredible day. Goff had the best EPA per play since 2021, other than Jordan Love's demolition of the Cowboys in last year's playoffs. It was an outrageously efficient game. They did run for 3 touchdowns, but they didn't have to lean on the run so much. The Colts are kind of a similar setup. They're mediocre against the pass and the run, or a little bit, I would say, but they're below average. They're not horrendous against either the pass or the run, but they're not good. The Lions love to run the ball. They did, by the way, have only a 49% pass rate last week. They didn't go nuts. They just were super efficient. I think we get kind of like a redo on last week. So it's sort of like, what did you come out of last week believing? Did you come out of last week believing this when Goff is efficient, when he's in a spot to be efficient, this passing game will just light it up on low volume? Or did you come away thinking, man, the Lions really can score points and they love to run the ball, and that makes me want to play their running backs? But I trust the Lions to put up points here, as does Vegas. They have over a 29-point total, implied team total again this week.
Yeah, I too trust the Lions to put up points here.
Let's go out on a limb
Yeah,
and say the Lions will put up points.
I'm pretty into almost every Lions player. The one that I have a question on for you is they get Laporta back from injury this week, and I mean, he's just been so underwhelming this season. He really seems like he's pretty squarely the third fiddle in the passing game, behind Amon-Ra and behind Jameson, and so they did have a low volume. They had a low volume passing game last week. Now, if they're scoring touchdowns like they scored last week, then yeah, Laporta can get there. You're just like, I hope that Laporta gets one of the touchdowns, and then you're fine, right? And he is pretty cheap. But what do you think about Laporta relative to JMO? JMO goes a little bit before Laporta, but they both go near each other in drafts.
I think Laporta. So he's been okay in terms of efficiency, 1.79 yards per route run. The thing that makes me most nervous about him is he got an 8% first read target rate. Jameson Williams is at 15%, and Jameson Williams gets targeted much deeper downfield. So the average target for Williams is so much more valuable. And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown with a 22% first read target rate, which is 94th percentile. He also has a 29% target share. So like the volume was already getting, like, even as we entered the season, Laporta looked a bit pricey. It's hard to completely fade this guy who had an incredible rookie season, second-year tight end, good draft capital. But it was always like, it kind of made me nervous to begin with. There wasn't much room for another guy to come in. Like, you're like, where's the breakout, volume coming from? Maybe he's just that good that he's able to kind of consolidate a little bit more work. But Jameson coming in and not just getting used downfield sometimes, but very clearly being a core part of the game plans with that 15% first read target rate. That's 65th percentile. It's not incredible, but like that's pretty good. Number 2 type option. Then you got Laporta, who's in the 33rd percentile for a tight end in first read target rate. Yeah, I think it's kind of like a touchdown or bust type of play.
So, like, if you had to choose between taking Laporta and then passing on, say, your last skill position player and punting a skill position player and getting stuck with like a Keenan Allen or a Roma Dunze or your favorite Patriots dart throw or Xavier Worthy, would you go with Laporta and accept that skill position punt, or would you rather just punt tight end and take Jamison Williams instead, punt tight end and get someone like Zach Ertz or a Luke Schoonmaker or a Tucker Kraft or something like that?
I think when you take Laporta, you have punted tight end. This maybe.
And that's just he's kind of the way it feels like people are treating him is like, oh, he's the last like good one. He's the last one I can take without punting.
Yeah, and I'd rather have him than those guys. I don't mean to be too negative, but
right. But yeah, if you have a legitimate trade-off,
I would prioritize the wide receiver and punt the tight end. I think. Yeah.
Speaking of wide receiver, the wide receiver that I am actually the most overweight on in this game is not a Lions wide receiver. It's a Colts wide receiver. And I think I need to slow down a little bit, but maybe you can talk some sense into me. I've got a lot of Josh Downs so far this week. He goes kind of in the early to mid 4th round. Sometimes you can get him probably like into the 4th round. But he'd be going after guys like Jawan Jennings. I'll pull the ADP here so I can, like, after Jamison Williams, after Jaden Reed, he goes right before him and Calvin Ridley are like basically back to back. Do you think that's a fair price for Downs? Am I a little out over my skis?
We have him one spot. We have him one spot. We have him literally between Jaden Reed and Calvin Ridley right now in the rankings. Actually above Jamison, although I don't know if I love that. We might need to move Jameson up. But yeah, the Josh Downs it's such a bet on talent play. He has 2.47 yards per route run.
That's so good.
And then he's got a 30% targets per route run, 26% target share. He's 99th percentile in open score. I mean, dude is really, really good. The only issue with Josh Downs as a player and kind of his role, we'll get to Richardson, but just kind of with Downs' stuff is that he's a slot, and he is not, unfortunately, that JSN slot where he's like never ever leaving. 3 weeks ago, he only had 67% route participation, then 72% 2 weeks ago, and 78% last week. We're not really seeing like the 90 percentile or not 90% route participation type stuff from Josh Downs. He leaves the field a little bit more. And so, yeah, you're getting the awesome yards per route run stuff, but it's a little less exciting when you just look at like the per game. It's still really good though. But that's one concern. And then obviously Richardson just provides such a low floor for all of his weapons. But, in games that reward ceiling, so in DFS, Richardson is a really good play, like, price per dollar and stuff. And, it's an interesting game environment as well. They're going to have to throw a lot probably, but he's difficult. So Downs is difficult to stack in DFS, or he's a tough click, let me say, 6,200. So I've been trying to think through, would I play Josh Downs with Anthony Richardson? And I'm kind of on the fence. So I don't know. Honestly, I would probably want to do what you're doing and just find a spot where I can attack him and draft him a bunch, because I don't know if I want to spend the salary on him this week in DFS.
Yeah, and that's Richardson's kind of pricey. Just when you consider what you're giving up at a skill position to take Richardson, where you can punt to these pretty cheap and very viable quarterbacks, I do have a little Richardson, and I've stacked him with Downs, but I've found myself playing it more through Downs. And I guess the way that I'm thinking through this is it's pretty hard to run on the Lions, and I'm reasonably confident the Lions will be playing from a lead in this game most of the time. And so the scary part though is that might not be enough for Shane Steichen. Like Shane Steichen just might be so terrified of having to cut loose
Right.
Anthony Richardson.
Incentives. What's the goal? You know,
Right.
what is he? Yeah, what's he trying to accomplish? What's the risk reward that makes sense for him? And he could just really be trying to hide Richardson. Just hide.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is a scary spot. I think I'm just probably too overweight right now, and that's something I'm going to try and I want to diversify out from that.
He's a low floor play.
He is.
He could like 3 for 30.
Yeah.
Seems extremely live to me.
Yeah. It's certainly scary in that regard. I'm gonna look exactly how much Josh Downs I have right now, and you can tell me live on air how crazy I am.
He's really good. I mean, it's not crazy.
He's not my highest drafted player. He's my third highest drafted at 28%.
Okay.
Oh, we need to talk about it. I mean, I like this game environment a lot, very clearly, because my second highest drafted player is Jonathan Taylor. He goes in the third round sometimes. Often the like late second. I'll pull his ADP here real quick. So let's see, Jonathan Taylor, average 8. So he's 2-3 turn on average. Average is 24, and then his max ADP is 31. That was for your boy here. But so I've got a lot of Jonathan Taylor because I think that's how I want to play this game, is just like the Lions score so many flipping points that the Colts just have to cut it loose, and they're like, we have to score. We have to score at whatever it takes. And so this might be bad. I actually want your input on this. I have some Jonathan Taylor and Josh Downs teams without Anthony Richardson. I thought maybe I could get Richardson to come back in the fifth, and so
I don't love that.
I don't either, but I was hoping maybe you'd tell me it's okay, but I don't really like it.
I don't like it that much. Yeah,
it is a small field. It's only a 5,000 person field, so it's like you can kind of get away with that type of stuff more, where you're just the thing that I'm like most playing this game around is like there will be lots of points in this game. And so but yeah,
I guess what I'd say, like, Richardson's he's not running that much as far like it's a lot of touchdown equity. So like you could see if he like throws a touchdown, if he only throws like one touchdown and doesn't run for any, and Jonathan Taylor runs for the touchdowns, I could see that hitting. But it's not something I would aim to do.
No, I'm certainly not. I wasn't
aiming. You weren't aiming to do it either, it sounds like. Yeah.
I had Jonathan Taylor on a team because I got him at a good price, and then I'm sitting there in the late fourth round, and Josh Downs is there in the late fourth, and it's like, do I want Josh Downs or DJ Moore?
Josh Downs.
Yeah, me too. And so that's how I kept finding myself there. I don't know. Right. I don't know exactly how many of those I have, but I'll pull up just so I can. I'll pull up just so I can embarrass myself here. Well, no, there's track, just not off the top of my head. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's find out.
This is not. Just so people know, like,
I've only done it
low on combos. This will not be a low on combo because Sack has.
It actually is relatively low owned. It's probably too high owned for like what it is, because there are four total occurrences of it. So it's happening in a little around 10% ish of drafts from my sample. So yeah, and I've done it twice. Do either of these have Anthony Richardson on them? This one does not. Neither of these have Anthony Richardson on them. One of the other ones does. One of the other ones in the tournament does. So, yeah, I think I'd prefer it if I had Richardson on it. But I do just like playing this game to go nuts, because the Lions have shown us That's possible. So one of them I've got David Montgomery on, and then the other one I wasn't able to get a Lion. I think they just all got taken from me before I could grab one. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Nice. Let's we don't have too much time left, so let's talk 49ers Packers quickly. This obviously was shaken up in a big way. I wrote it up thinking Purdy would play. He's not playing. We're getting Brandon Allen instead. I did write it up as a game where I thought the Packers would try to run the ball, because they always try to run the ball. Kind of frustratingly so. Jordan Love had a 95th percentile EPA per play last week, but the Packers had a 51% pass rate. Love dropped back just 20 times. He was also awesome against the Cardinals with a 95th percentile pass rate, or 95th percentile EPA per play, excuse me. They only had a 52% pass rate in that game. So it's like, maybe when Love's playing awesome, you guys could pass. Would that be possible? But I don't really think they're going to do that here. A lot of teams are running on the 49ers. They have a minus 4% PROE against with a 5% shift to the run. Now, Bosa's out for this game, which maybe gives them a little bit more confidence to pass. But Bosa is actually pretty good in run defense as well. And so he won't help the fact that, the 49ers can't really stop the run that well. They're 20th in EPA allowed per rush, 22nd rushing success rate against, 27th in PFF's run grades. Especially with Bosa out, you can run on this defense. And, Josh Jacobs kind of sort of similar to Connor, where he's sort of touchdown dependent, but at the same time, that probably undersells him because he's running efficiently. He's running back 5 in rushes over expected per game, running back 6 in success rate, running back 11 in breakaway yards per game, running back 16 in elusive rating. And with Brandon Allen on the other side of this game, it's going to be much harder to push the Packers off of their typical approach. Like, we should, at baseline, assume the Packers are here to run the ball and then utilize the passing game off of the run game. That's what we've seen from them this year. Without Purdy on the other side, that just seems very likely to me.
Yeah, I mean, this to me, it really does feel like all of the factors are starting to point in the direction of the Packers should be able to run, and they probably will be in a position where they want to run because with Bosa out, I mean, the 49ers are what I believe in the walkthrough you have them as 27th in run stop win rate. Let me actually
the 12th in run stop win rate, where Bosa is actually pretty good, and that's like more of a defensive line stat, and so that's bad. Like, if you're losing one of the guys that's kind of driving that's the one silver lining here. That's the one bright spot.
Sorry, 27th in run grade. That was what I was
run grade, yeah.
But yes, yeah. So they're already bad in run grade, and then the thing that they're good at just got substantially weaker, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have a 49ers offense that should get a pretty decent downgrade with Brock Purdy out.
Yeah.
And so I do think it does set up for a pretty good Josh Jacobs spot. I'm interested in the Packers receiving options just because I think the way they get there is through efficiency, through touchdowns, and if the Packers are able to move the ball efficiently and they're able to run and the 49ers can't stop them, you just might get, they're able to continuously drive down and score touchdowns. And so I do still like some of the passing or the receiving options for the Packers. I'm pretty into Jaden Reed just because we've seen those hyper efficient ceiling games from him. So I do like his spot here. I don't hate the spot for, and this is more of an underdog take specifically, but I really don't hate the spot for Dobbs or Watson. I think you can do both. It's been a pretty long time since we've seen anything from Dobbs that's remotely exciting. So I don't think he's going to be clicked hardly at all. People are clicking Watson probably too frequently. So the contrarian in me just wants to say, whatever, you guys take Watson, I'll take Dobbs. If I'm getting the slight worst of it and the probability of this guy having a tournament winning type of outcome for me, that's fine because when he does, I'm going to be the only guy who is willing to really draft him. Strongly prefer Reed over both of those guys. But yeah, I do think Watson is probably he's a little steamy just from the recent good game that he had.
That makes sense. Yeah. What do you think about on the 49ers? Because the 49ers have to win this game, right? So I think we're going to get now. They're probably, um, you know, I think that they'll be happy if the Packers do their normal thing and run the ball. They're getting bailed out a little bit. Like you've got the Packers have an extreme advantage in quarterback quality now. You could argue that maybe that should be a reason to really try to push it and make the 49ers chase. But I don't know that that's how they're going to do it. That's not really how NFL teams tend to operate. They sort of do what they do well, and they have kind of a formula of how they, feel comfortable attacking and everything. So it's more likely that the Packers kind of stick to their usual approach. But that should allow the 49ers to kind of be in this game unless Allen is a complete disaster. So I think we're still going to get plenty of CMC. I'm not like real worried about CMC here. I mean, he's going to get his. Packers don't have a good run defense. This was setting up. If CMC was like clearly the RB1 on the slate, and I think maybe still is even with Allen out. Like that's,
he is certainly still the RB1 on the slate in my book.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, but like it's wild to go from like to have a huge quarterback downgrade and go, yeah, you're still the RB1. No worries. But yeah, I agree. So, but they have to win this game. What are your thoughts on like Debo? Like any trickery, any like weird design stuff that Shanahan has, right? He's got to be all the way in his bag for this game.
Yes,
could be good for Debo, right?
Oh, I'm glad you said this because I felt like I might be galaxy braining too hard. Now, it's a mixture of galaxy braining and bag defending and cope because early in the week when we got Purdy as questionable, so let me paint you a picture. So we get Purdy as questionable, and I'm like, I'm definitely going to attack the spot because you get the Q tag swap on underdog, right? So I'm like, worst case scenario, I could swap to Kyle Allen if I really want to. Or I can just say, whatever, I don't need the stack. I'll just swap to Drake.
It's Brandon Allen, right? Not Kyle Allen.
Brandon Allen. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
No, because Kyle Allen's a whole different story.
No, that would be a different can of worms. Yeah.
I mean, they're probably equivalent, but sure. Yeah. I feel like Kyle Allen's burned me more over the years. Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, I was attacking Purdy, and then we get he took himself out of practice. He like threw once or twice. He took himself out of practice. Then on Thursday we got he was back. He threw a little bit. So I took that as like
that's where I landed because I was like, all right, he's playing.
Yeah, I was like, this is the spot. Like I'm gonna hammer this because the market is giving me Brock Purdy in the 6th round every time, and I'm just loading up. And so I got a bunch of 49ers stacks with 6th round Brock Purdy. I was all in on it. And then he gets ruled out, and I still was like, I'm going to swap off him. I don't really hate all the Debo exposure that I have because, again, like you said, it's a must-win game for them. Like, their playoff probability, if they lose and the Cardinals win this week, we can run the sims after this for the playoff sims that we have for the sidekick, but and take a look at it. I would not be surprised if the 49ers are sub 10% if they lose and the Cardinals win, right? It's dire for them if that happens. So they have to win. Debo's been quiet lately. Like I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a like here it all is. We're leaving it all on the field type of game. Debo's getting carries. We're doing weird end arounds. We're
doing the toss. The end around. You throw it back.
Yeah,
throw it deep.
I think it's all coming out here. And then also like if you're worried about your backup quarterback being able to operate downfield as effectively, I think it does hurt. If it's a legitimate quarterback downgrade, the guy who hurts the most is Juwan Jennings, probably.
Let's give some respect to Purdy. This is a legitimate quarterback downgrade.
Yeah. No. And I'm squarely off the Purdy hater bandwagon. I'm a Purdy believer. There's a reason why I was slamming him this week, okay? But I'm just saying there is an element of, hey, the 49ers system is just so quarterback friendly that while this guy is definitely markedly worse than Brock Purdy, you just have this nice cozy system where maybe you get like this little built-in floor here where it's hard to stink. it's really hard to stink as the 49ers quarterback.
Right.
Which we saw with Jimmy Garoppolo, because Jimmy Garoppolo, he did stink as the 49ers quarterback, but he was still, they went to the Super Bowl with him. Then he goes to the Raiders, and it's like, oh my God, oh no. Like, so you have this, it's a quarterback elevator, certainly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, in a huge way it is. Yeah. So I think Kittle and Jennings are the ones that I'm most worried about because they're the downfield traditional weapons. McCaffrey don't have. I mean, definitely hurts him, but it's like the range is still so good that you're not that worried. And then Debo, I don't think it helps Debo, but maybe this stuff. I think there are some things that help and some things that hurt, and maybe it balances out ish. Still probably overall a downgrade for Debo, but I'm not like super worried about Debo relative to the other guys.
Well, here's the thing too. Debo goes in like the mid to late third round. He was going in like the mid early third round, but he goes in like the late third round now. I'll pull up his ADP, which is going to be skewed from some of the stuff I did earlier in the week. Let me find him here. Yeah, his average his ADP is 28, but he's gone as late as pick 41. So you can get fourth round Debo. That's here's a question. Debo or JMO? It's also just fun to say. Debo or Josh Downs?
Debo.
Right. And so that's the trade-off you're making now with Debo. So I'm kind of into that.
I'm into that. Yeah.
I'll have a lot of Debo there. And because the ceiling outcomes for Debo are when Debo is just
What about Jennings versus Downs now? Where are you at on those guys?
I think I'm Jennings still. I think Jennings is good. I think Jennings is really good.
Yeah.
And also Jennings, so it would be, my answer would be different if it was Ayuk instead. If Ayuk was healthy and we were talking about Ayuk versus Jennings, I'd probably be Downs over Ayuk. And that's not to say that Jennings is in a vacuum a better receiver than Ayuk. I think he's probably pretty freaking close though. It's
the thing. The role is different. He's getting more of
that's the point. The role is different. Jennings is their big-bodied guy. Like when it's third and Jawan, like that's why it's third and Jawan, because he's a big-bodied guy. He knows how to box out and use his size. Like Quentin Johnston, please watch some Jawan Jennings tape. I'm begging you. Like
no. He won't.
But he could. It would help so much.
So much tape. That's just so far from his game.
But yeah, my point is I don't think it hurts Jawan Jennings as much as it would hurt Ayuk. I think it hurts Jennings more than it hurts Debo, and it probably hurts Kittle more than Jennings. But yeah, I'm into Jennings in the fourth round, and I wasn't getting a lot of Jennings earlier in the week because people were taking him in the mid third, and that was like a little too pricey there for me. But now if I can get him in the fourth, I think I'm into it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Same ADP as Debo, by the way. They both go pick 32 on average, and basically the same range as well. Or no, I'm sorry, Debo picked 28, Jennings picked 32. But yeah, Jennings max of 44, Debo a max of 41. So they're both living in that early 40s now.
Yeah, and I don't think it's crazy to have them close to each other, but I do prefer Debo now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get out of here. Appreciate you jumping on with me, Sack. We should tell people we got the playoff best ball sidekick imminently going to be out here. By the time you're watching this, I don't think we'll have launched it, but we're going to be very close to launching it. So, and maybe we will have. So be on the lookout for an announcement with the playoff best ball sidekick going live. If you're a Sidekick subscriber. And then we'll do a broader announcement. We'll have plenty out on it, and then we'll also have plenty out on the playoff best ball contests. Some just regular subscription tier stuff to help people attack all of those, get an idea of what we're looking to do, which teams we like, all that stuff. And we'll have more content on the podcast feed on playoff best ball as well. But if you're looking to attack the Week 12 slate, highly recommend going over and checking out the walkthrough, Matt Irby's Quick Slants. And, we'll hop in the Discord. We'll talk through some of that stuff. Anything else, Zach, before we get out of here?
Just very excited to be back to playoff best ball season. It is my favorite fantasy format, and we've been hard at work on the Sidekick, making some improvements behind the scenes. We know that people have wanted to get their hands on it for these way too early contests, so hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it'll be out. But keep your eye on your inboxes. If you're signed up for the newsletter, you'll get something letting you know that playoff best ball for the Sidekick is live. And definitely hop in the Discord. I am happy to talk playoff best ball day or night. I just have a blast chatting it up. So please feel free to use me as a resource and find us in the Discord.
It's not often that you can actually talk to the Sims, but in the case of playoff best ball, you can you can just tag Sackreligious and have a conversation with the Sims. All right, we'll see you guys next week for the Week 13 preview. Until then, good luck. Have a great Week 12, and see you later.